Chapter 10 of Mary Barton. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Wendy in Lehi, Utah. Mary Barton by Elizabeth Cleghorn Gaskell. Chapter 10. Return of the Prodigal. My heart once soft as woman's tear is gnarled with gloating on the ills I cannot cure. Eliot. Then guard and shield her innocence. Let her not fall like me. 'Twere better, oh, 1,000 times, she in her grave should be. The Outcast. Despair settled down like a heavy cloud, and then, through the dead calm of sufferings, came pipings of stormy winds, foretelling the end of these dark prognostics. In times of sorrowful or fierce endurance, we are often soothed by the mere repetition of old proverbs, which tell the experience of our forefathers. But now, it's a long lane that has no turning. The weariest day draws to an end, etc., seemed false and vain sayings. So long and so weary was the pressure of terrible times. Deeper and deeper still sank the poor. It showed how much lingering suffering it takes to kill men, that so few in comparison died during those times. But remember, we only miss those who do men's work in their humble sphere. The aged, the feeble, the children, when they die, are hardly noticed by the world. And yet, to many hearts, their deaths make a blank which long years will never fill up. Remember, too, that though it may take much suffering to kill the able-bodied and effective members of society, it does not take much to reduce them to worn, listless, diseased creatures, who thenceforward crawl through life with moody hearts and pain-stricken bodies. The people had thought the poverty of the preceding years hard to bear, and found its yoke heavy, but this year added sorely to its weight. Former times had chastised them with whips, but this chastised them with scorpions. Of course Barton had his share of mere bodily sufferings. Before he had gone up to London on his vain errand, he had been working short time. But in the hopes of speedy redress by means of the interference of Parliament, he had thrown up his place, and now, when he asked leave to resume his work, he was told they were diminishing their number of hands every week, and he was made aware by the remarks of fellow workmen that a Chartist delegate and a leading member of a trades union was not likely to be favoured in his search after employment. Still he tried to keep up a brave heart concerning himself. He knew he could bear hunger, for that power of endurance had been called forth when he was a little child, and had seen his mother hide her daily morsel, to share it among her children, and when he, being the eldest, had told the noble lie that he was not hungry, could not eat a bit more, in order to imitate his mother's bravery, and still the sharp wail of the younger infants. Mary, too, was secure of 2 meals a day at Miss Simmons', though, by the way, the dressmaker, too, feeling the effect of bad times, had left off giving tea to her apprentices, setting them the example of long abstinence by putting off her own meal till work was done for the night, however late that might be. But the rent! It was ½ a crown a week, nearly all Mary's earnings, and much less room might do for them, only 2. Now came the time to be thankful that the early dead were saved from the evil to come. The agricultural labourer generally has strong local attachments, but they are far less common, almost obliterated among the inhabitants of a town. Still there are exceptions, and Barton formed one. He had removed to his present house just after the last bad times, when little Tom had sickened and died. He had then thought the bustle of a removal would give his poor stunned wife something to do, and he had taken more interest in the details of the proceeding than he otherwise would have done, in the hope of calling her forth to action again. So he seemed to know every brass-headed nail driven up for her convenience. Only one had been displaced. It was Esther's bonnet-nail, which in his deep revengeful anger against her, after his wife's death, he had torn out of the wall and cast into the street. It would be hard work to leave the house, which yet seemed hallowed by his wife's presence in the happy days of old. But he was a law unto himself, though sometimes a bad, fierce law, and he resolved to give the rent-collector notice, and look out for a cheaper abode, and tell Mary they must flit. Poor Mary! She loved the house, too. It was wrenching up her natural feelings of home, for it would be long before the fibers of her heart would gather themselves about another place. This trial was spared. The collector, of himself, on the very Monday when Barton planned to give him notice of his intention to leave, lowered the rent 3d. a week, just enough to make Barton compromise and agree to stay on a little longer. But by degrees the house was stripped of all its little ornaments. Some were broken, and the odd 2d. and 3d. wanted to pay for their repairs were required for the far sterner necessity of food. And by Mary began to part with the other superfluities at the pawnshop. The smart tea-tray and tea-caddy, long and carefully kept, went for bread for her father. He did not ask for it or complain, but she saw hunger in his shrunk, fierce, animal look. Then the blankets went, for it was summer-time and they could spare them, and their sale made a fund which Mary fancied would last till better times came. But it was soon all gone, and then she looked around the room to crib it of its few remaining ornaments. To all these proceedings her father never said a word. If he fasted or feasted after the sale of some article, on an unusual meal of bread and cheese, he took all with a sullen indifference, which depressed Mary's heart. She often wished he would apply for relief from the Guardian's relieving office, often wondered the trades union did nothing for him. Once when she asked him as he sat, grimed, unshaven, and gaunt, after a day's fasting, over the fire, why he did not get relief from the town, he turned around with grim wrath and said, "I don't want money, child. Damn their charity and their money. I want work, and it is my right. I want work." He would bear it all, he said to himself, and he did bear it, but not meekly. That was too much to expect. Real meekness of character is called out by experience of kindness, and few had been kind to him. Yet through it all, with stern determination, he refused the assistance his trades union would have given him. It had not much to give, but with worldly wisdom thought it better to propitiate an active, useful member than to help those who were more unenergetic, though they had large families to provide for. Not so thought John Barton. With him need was right. "Give it to Tom Darbyshire," he said. "He's more claim on it than me, for he's more need of it, with his 7 children." Now Tom Darbyshire was, in his listless, grumbling way, a backbiting enemy of John Barton's, and he knew it, but he was not to be influenced by that in a matter like this. Mary went early to her work, but her cheery laugh over it was now missed by the other girls. Her mind wandered over the present distress, and then settled, as she stitched, on the visions of the future, where yet her thoughts dwelt more on the circumstances of ease and the pomps and vanities awaiting her than on the lover with whom she was to share them. Still she was not insensible to the pride of having attracted one so far above herself in station, not insensible to the secret pleasure of knowing that he, whom so many admired, had often said he would give anything for one of her sweet smiles. Her love for him was a bubble, blown out of vanity, but it looked very real and very bright. Sally Leadbitter, meanwhile, keenly observed the signs of the times. She found out that Mary had begun to affix a stern value to money as the purchaser of life, and many girls had been dazzled and lured by gold, even without the betraying love which she believed to exist in Mary's heart. So she urged young Mr. Carson, by representations of the want she was sure surrounded Mary, to bring matters more to a point. But he had a kind of instinctive dread of hurting Mary's pride of spirit, and durst not hint his knowledge in any way of the distress that many must be enduring. He felt that, for the present, he must still be content with stolen meetings and summer evening strolls, and the delight of pouring sweet, honeyed words into her ears while she listened, with a blush and a smile that made her look radiant with beauty. No, he would be cautious, in order to be certain. For Mary, one way or another, he must make his. He had no doubt of the effect of his own personal charms in the long run, for he knew he was handsome, and believed himself fascinating. If he had known what Mary's home was, he would not have been so much convinced of his increasing influence over her by her being more and more ready to linger with him in the sweet summer air. For when she returned for the night, her father was often out, and the house wanted the cheerful look it had had in the days when money was never wanted to purchase